You don't hate mornings, you hate the weight they reveal. Every time the alarm rings, it's not just a sound that jolts you awake. It's the dread that comes with it, that heavy psychological weight, the fatigue that clings to your body, the anxiety that whispers before your feet even touch the floor. You think it's about laziness or lack of discipline, but deep down, it's the clash between your circadian rhythm, your subconscious resistance, and the unresolved fears you drag from yesterday into today. That's why mornings don't feel fresh. They feel like punishment. What most people never realize is that this morning dread isn't random. It's the perfect storm of sleep inertia, depression, emotional exhaustion, and even unconscious fear surfacing at the rawest moment of your day. The body clock misalignment adds fuel to the fire, leaving you overwhelmed before you've had your first sip of coffee. And here's the hardest truth. The dread is not lying to you. It's showing you exactly where the cracks in your life are hiding. But here's the twist. The very thing that feels unbearable is also your biggest doorway to change. By shifting your morning routine, aligning your body with your natural rhythms, and reframing mornings with purpose, you can turn the heaviest part of your day into the most empowering. The question is, are you willing to see your dread not as an enemy, but as the messenger that can set you free? The psychological roots of morning dread. It's a strange thing, isn't it? The alarm clock goes off, and instead of excitement for the day ahead, a heavy psychological weight settles in. This dread isn't random. It often springs from unresolved problems lingering in the subconscious. The mind knows the unfinished business waiting out there, and that creates subconscious resistance to waking. For someone living with anxiety or depression, this transition from sleep to consciousness feels like stepping into a battlefield they didn't agree to fight in. That inner hesitation, though invisible, is as real as a locked door keeping them in bed. Think about how the ego reacts in those first moments of waking. Sleep inertia already clouds a mind, and then the ego interprets consciousness as a confrontation with reality. It whispers, "You're not ready, you'll fail again, just avoid it." That's where avoidance and self-sabotage sneak in, disguised as staying under the blanket. The dread becomes amplified by negative thought patterns, fueling an endless cycle. And here's the kicker. The body clock misalignment adds to the chaos, so what you feel natural, waking up, becomes loaded with unconscious fear. For many, mornings carry the echo of existential crisis. There's that sudden awareness of having to face responsibilities, deal with unfinished goals, or confront relationships left in limbo. It's not just getting up, it's stepping into the overwhelming reminder of everything avoided. The subconscious resistance acts like quicksand, pulling energy down before the day even starts. That fatigue and sense of overwhelm become a ritual of dread, locking people into emotional exhaustion before they've even had their first sip of coffee. But here's the interesting part. Mornings are also mirrors, revealing the hidden psychological battles people carry. Depression, anxiety, and burnout often show their strongest face at dawn because the mind is most raw, unprotected by distractions. That's why morning dread feels heavier than nighttime worry. It's stripped bare, and this moment, as uncomfortable as it is, exposes the unconscious fears that usually hide during the day. The weight of avoidance and the silent presence of dread may feel like punishment, but they're also signals pointing to deeper roots that will eventually connect to the body itself. Biological and physiological factors. When someone dreads waking up, it's not only the mind at play, the body has its own tricks. A disrupted circadian rhythm can throw everything off balance. Imagine your body clock misalignment as a broken conductor of an orchestra. The instruments still play, but the music turns into noise. That's where sleep inertia creeps in, making you feel sluggish, disoriented, and weighed down. It's not laziness. It's biology working against you, magnifying fatigue and subconscious resistance before the day even begins. Hormones also join the drama. Cortisol, often called the stress hormone, spikes in the morning to prepare the body for action. But if anxiety or depression already sits in the background, that spike doesn't energize, it amplifies dread. The stress response kicks in too strongly, making mornings feel like emergencies rather than fresh starts. Combine that with burnout or emotional exhaustion, and even getting out of bed feels like climbing Everest without oxygen. That's why so many people start their day in psychological weight, not motivation. Poor sleep quality only deepens the problem. Tossing and turning through the night leaves the body unprepared for the demands of the day. Emotional exhaustion meets physical fatigue, creating a perfect storm. When insomnia, late-night scrolling, or stress disrupts deep sleep cycles, the subconscious never fully rests. By dawn, the negative thought patterns reawaken first, while the body drags behind in sluggishness. No wonder dread shows up before breakfast. It's a natural consequence of body and mind failing to sync. Here's a simple, practical lens. Think of how jet lag feels when you travel across time zones. That disorientation, that fog, that subconscious resistance to movement. It's the same when the circadian rhythm is broken by irregular sleep habits. The body clock misalignment means you wake at war with your own biology. And without addressing that biological foundation, mornings will always feel like a weight. But of course, the biology is only half of the story. The deeper pain isn't just in the body, but in the soul's sense of direction. Existential and emotional dimensions. Beyond the biology, mornings often feel unbearable because of something far deeper. The weight of meaning, or rather, the lack of it. A life without clear purpose turns every morning into an existential crisis. Waking up doesn't just mean facing emails or traffic. It means confronting the overwhelming void of not knowing why one should bother at all. That lack of purpose feeds negative thought patterns and subconscious resistance, making fatigue heavier than any physical burden. This is where dread becomes more than a fleeting emotion. It becomes a spiritual warning signal. Burnout adds another layer to this emotional exhaustion. When someone is drained by endless demands and never-ending responsibilities, mornings feel like punishments instead of beginnings. Each sunrise whispers, "Here we go again." That's why dread isn't just about lack of sleep. It's about emotional depletion. The stress response keeps firing even before the day begins, overwhelming the psyche and fueling avoidance. In this state, even the smallest task, checking messages, preparing coffee, feels like an unbearable weight pressing on the chest. And then there are the unconscious fears, those subtle ghosts that rise most clearly at the threshold of waking. During sleep, the subconscious is free rein, and when consciousness returns, it carries fragments of those unresolved fears. Depression, anxiety, and hidden grief slip in like uninvited guests at dawn. This explains why dread can feel so raw, so sharp, so disproportionate compared to the day's actual demands. It's not the to-do list that crushes the spirit. It's the confrontation with repressed emotions that surface when distractions haven't yet taken over. These existential layers are why morning dread feels heavier than nighttime despair. At night, exhaustion can be numbed with avoidance, TV, scrolling, even overwork. But mornings strip away all those defenses. The body clock misalignment makes waking a physical struggle, while the soul's lack of meaning makes it an emotional one. And until purpose, direction, or healing is cultivated, each day begins with the same inner battle. Yet within this pain lies a strange opportunity. the chance to reframe mornings not as threats, but as open doors waiting to be crossed. Practical approaches to transformation. Now comes the part many overlook. Change isn't about erasing dread overnight, but about reshaping mornings with intentionality. Building consistent morning rituals helps stabilize the body clock and calm subconscious resistance. A glass of water at the bedside, 5 minutes of stretching, or even journaling about anxiety and negative thought patterns can rewire the stress response. Instead of diving straight into overwhelm, these small anchors break the cycle of avoidance and reduce the fatigue that makes mornings feel unbearable. Rituals are not about perfection. They're about creating safety where dread once ruled. Therapy and self-inquiry are powerful allies here. A therapist can help untangle depression, burnout, or unconscious fear that fuels dread, while practices like meditation or shadow work give space for hidden emotions to surface without judgment. Imagine starting the day by sitting with silence for just 5 minutes, observing the flood of thoughts without engaging them. That small act chips away at self-sabotage and reveals the subconscious resistance for what it is: fear of facing reality. Books like The Untethered Soul or journaling prompts about purpose can also guide this process. Cultivating meaning is the deeper solution, though. When mornings are reframed as opportunities to serve a larger purpose, dread loses some of its grip. This doesn't mean chasing grand missions right away. It can be as simple as deciding to read a chapter of a meaningful book, call a loved one, or practice gratitude before diving into work. The subconscious thrives on direction, and when it senses intention, the stress response softens. Even existential crisis transforms into curiosity when a thread of purpose weaves through the morning routine. The truth is, mornings will always reflect the state of one's inner life. If emotional exhaustion and burnout dominate, dread will reign. But when rituals, therapy, and meaning align, mornings become something else entirely, a chance to reset, to grow, to rise above unconscious fears. Sleep, inertia, and fatigue may still visit, but they no longer define the day. Instead, each sunrise carries the possibility of transformation, not punishment. And it is in this very reframing that the first step toward lasting freedom begins. So let's face it head on. Every morning you dread is really a mirror reflecting back to places in your life that need healing. The fatigue, the anxiety, the subconscious resistance. They're not random accidents. They're signals. If you keep ignoring them, you'll stay trapped in the cycle of overwhelm, self-sabotage, and emotional exhaustion. But if you start treating them as guides, you'll notice how the very weight you fear can become the fuel for transformation. That's not just philosophy. It's a wake-up call your body and soul have been shouting for years. Now, think about this. What if tomorrow morning you didn't roll over in avoidance, but instead leaned into a small ritual of meaning? What if, instead of drowning in negative thought patterns, you use those fragile first minutes to anchor yourself? The circadian rhythm can be trained, the body clock misalignment corrected, and the dread reframed into direction. It doesn't happen by accident, though. It happens by deciding that you won't keep starting your day in unconscious fear. That's a choice only you can make, and it starts now. So here's the challenge. Will you keep letting mornings be the battlefield where you lose before the fight even begins? Or will you reframe them into opportunities to rise? Drop a comment and tell me, what's the first thing you'll change tomorrow morning? And if you're ready to keep peeling back these layers, subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications. Because every new video we drop is another tool to help you break free from the weight, align with your purpose, and stop dreading the life you're meant to live.